Hello students, we are going to be continuing in on our notes for Chapter 1, Geographer's Toolbox. So you should have opened up Chapter 1, Section 2.1 notes from modules in Canvas, and hopefully now you've also split your screen so that you are able to see what I am sharing and also your notes. And we are going to go over this information, and as I do, you are going to type in the information so that you can use it later on assignments. So we are beginning here at 2.1 elements of a map, and we are looking here at the textbook 2.1 elements of a map. And I am going to read to you this video platform that I am using is not going to allow me to use the function of reading the textbook. You won't be able to hear it, so I am going to read that to you. So we are looking at here under the main idea that globes and maps are two different tools used to study places in Earth. Have you ever needed to figure out how to get to a friend's house? Imagine the only resource you had was a globe. In order to see enough detail to find your friend's house, the globe would have to be enormous, much too big to carry around in your pocket. Globes and maps. A three-dimensional or spherical representation of Earth is called a globe. It is useful when you need to see Earth as a whole, but it is not helpful if you need to see a small section of Earth. Now imagine taking a part of the globe and flattening it out. This two-dimensional or flat representation of Earth is called a map. Maps and globes are different representations of Earth, but they have similar features. So we have over here on our notes, we need to basically define globe and to define map. Now in our text, it typically highlights our vocabulary words. So you'll see globe is highlighted here. And so our answer, oh, it's not going to let me highlight it. Okay, so our answer for a globe is a 3D or spherical representation of the Earth, which is useful to see the Earth as a whole. So spherical basically means round, right? So that is what a globe is. And I'm going to pause for a moment to give you time to type. Okay, and then a map. Again, we have that highlighted over here in the text. So the answer is this two-dimensional or flat representation of the Earth. So a 2D or flat representation of the Earth. Now we can get much more detailed on a map. We can have maps of virtually anything created, and we can zoom in as close as we possibly can or want. And then also we can zoom out as much as we want to. So we could have a map of the world, which is not going to give us a lot of detail, but we can also zoom in on a particular area to get more detail. As you kind of see over here on the textbook, I know my video is a little bit over top of it, but we're looking at Germany there. So we zoomed in on Germany, and notice this little globe here is showing us where Germany is in the world on the globe. And we'll get a little bit more to that in a moment. So our next heading is map and globe elements. So we're going to use this page, map and globe elements, to get the information that we need. Now notice that I put a star, and that star equals an element that is found on all maps. We have 4 elements that are found on all maps, or at least they should be on all maps. You are going to come across some maps that don't have all of these things, but these are the very basic things that should be on a map. Now you might see some other things that say there are 5 basic elements, but the 5th one that they're talking about is really a border, and I don't think that that's super important. So we're going to focus on these 4 basic elements, but we're going to talk about all of the elements that are on a map. So A, A title that tells the subject of the map or globe. So that is one of our basic elements that are found on all maps, or that should be on all maps. So when you create a map, you need to put a title on it. It doesn't have to be a real specific title. It doesn't have to be a creative title. It just needs to have a title. So when we scroll back up here for a second, you'll see A, Germany's economic activity. That is the title. That's what this map is about, okay? B is symbols. Symbols represent information such as natural resources and economic activities. Okay, so I'm going to again give you the chance to write that. So this map over here is giving an example. It's got B on, it may be difficult for you to read here, but it says steel. Okay, so that is representing certain activities. You're going to see different symbols. So on here as well, you'll see a little cart that has coal in it. That's the symbol for coal. There's a car. That's the symbol for automobile. And you can find those in the key or the legend, which we are going to get to as well as we move through the list. So letter C is labels. Labels are the names of places such as cities, countries, rivers, and mountains. So again, I'm going to move over this way here. Okay. Now we can see the rest of the map, and C, Germany, is a label that we've put on the map. Okay. Now, if you look closer, you can also see here are some rivers, and there's a label for that river. There's a city, and there's the label for that city. Now, it doesn't have to label all of those things. And again, it depends on what kind of map we're looking at, on what labels you have on your map. Okay, letter D is colors. Colors represent different kinds of information. For example, the color blue usually represents water. And so once again, on this map over here on the left, we do see water. We have the North Sea and we have the Baltic Sea. Again, those are also labels that they are putting on the water. They don't always, and they're not going to label every single body of water. In fact, you see many other rivers here that are not labeled, but you can label them, okay? And so rivers, notice, are also blue, right? I'm going to pause a moment to let you get caught up and make sure that you have that typed in. Okay, we're going to move on to letter E, lines of latitude. Lines of latitude are imaginary horizontal lines that measure the distance north or south of the equator. Now, we are going to spend more time talking about lines of latitude and lines of longitude, which is our next one. Horizontal lines are, think about if you are laying down, you are horizontal, okay? So it goes, we'll say across, and it goes from east to west, if that helps you a little bit too, and we're going to talk more about that later. On our map over here, letter E, a line of latitude. Let's see, where's E? Up here. So going from west to east or east to west. Okay, and this is the you may or may not be able to see again. It's really small, and if I zoom it in, then I've got to zoom back out again. So it's got our degrees on how far north or south of the equator that line is, and this is how we find our absolute location. We talked about absolute location with the five themes of geography. Okay, and once again, I'm going to pause to make sure that you are able to type that information. Now, also remember that if this moves too quickly for you, that you'll be able to go back and watch it again since we're watching this live together. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one, which is F, lines of longitude. So Lines of longitude are imaginary vertical lines that measure the distance east or west of the prime meridian. So up in the notes where I put E and W, that stands for east or west. That's pretty much how I do most of our directions. When I put them in, I'll use N for north, S for south, E for east, W for west. Those are usually pretty easy to remember and understand. So over here on this map, F, we see over here, and there's more than one line of latitude and more than one line of longitude, but this is just pointing it out for you to see on this map. So here's F, and if you follow my arrow all the way down, that's our line of longitude. And there's another one right here. It goes all the way down. And then there's another one right here that goes all the way down. So line of longitude is the opposite of latitude. So these lines are going to go vertical, okay? So they're going up and down or north and south, and they are measuring that distance east and west of the prime meridian. And remember, we learned about the prime meridian also in our continents and oceans lessons that we were working on. Okay, our next one is scale. And again, there's a star next to this. So remember, what does the star mean? Look back at the top of your notes where it tells you the star means that this is an element that you find on all maps, or that should be on all maps, okay? So a scale shows how much distance on Earth is represented by a distance on the map or globe. For example, a ½ inch on the map above represents 100 miles on Earth, okay? So we're going to paraphrase that a little bit. You're going to type that it helps find distance on a map. It shows the size of the map compared to the actual size of the land surface. So we may need to know how far away something is by looking at a map. And what are you going to say? Oh, it's an inch away? No, that's not going to help us, right? That's not going to tell us how far something is or how long it's going to take us to get there. So we need to do a little bit of math here, a little bit of measuring. So we will look at this scale, which is right here. G is on the map, and they always have it, almost always, in miles and kilometers. We don't use kilometers in the United States, but they use kilometers all around the rest of the world. And so usually when we're working with scale, I will be asking you miles. So here, 100 miles, and they said that this is a ½ of an inch. And so we would have to cut a piece of paper to measure it against the scale and then hold it up to find how far we want. So if it's, an inch, let's say it's 2 inches long. So 2 inches long is going to be 400 miles because 1/2 inch is 100. So that's 1/2, that's another half, that's another half, that makes 1.5, and that makes 2. So that's 400 miles that something would be. And once again, we're going to spend more time looking at scale and how you use it, okay? Next is H, legend or key. Now, I almost always will call this a key, but you'll see it either way, and I don't care what you call it. You can call it a legend or you can call it a key. Either one is perfectly fine. I just like key better, so that's usually how I will write it on assignments or in questions, okay? So a legend or a key also is on every single map. And this is definitely a really important one. We might not always need to measure distance on a map, but we are always going to need to know what we're looking at on a map. So a legend or a key explains what the symbols and colors on the map or globe represent. So when we look at the map over here again, H, here's our key. And we are looking at select industries, because remember, this map's about economy. So an industry is what makes money. And these are the 3 major things that make money in Germany: automobiles, coal, and steel. And so that's where we're going to be looking for those things on the map. Next is our compass rose. Also notice that there's a star. A compass rose should be on every single map. So a compass rose shows direction, north, south, east, and west. And sometimes it will have the intermediate directions on there as well, which we're going to talk about next, but it doesn't always. You should just kind of know what those are. So here is our a little bit. Here is our compass rose, letter I. So you'll see north, south, east, and west. And pretty much always on a map, they're going to have north facing up. But that's not necessarily always the direction that you're going to be facing when you are, say, driving somewhere or walking somewhere, okay? But north is almost always going to be pointing up. And maybe you already learned a little bit about how to remember the order of the directionals. Never eat soggy waffles, I think, is what most people say. So it goes around, never eat soggy waffles, okay? So over here, for your next one, yours says to find a, what does it say? Add an image of a compass rose labeled with the cardinal and intermediate directions. I'm going to ask you to do this in a little bit instead of right now so that you don't have to click out of your notes and you don't have to click out of my screen. Well, I'm just going to put this up here for you. So these are the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. And normally that's what we say is north, south, east, and west. But to remember how they're labeled, once again, it should be never eat soggy waffles. So you go around it in clockwise to write that. And then our intermediate directions mean what's in between each one. So in between north and east is northeast, right? In between east and south is southeast, not east-south. Southeast, we say, okay? And then in between west and south is southwest. And then in between north and west is northwest. So it's really easy to draw one of those. And in fact, you could draw it in there if you wanted to as well. So here I'm going to draw basically a large plus sign, right? And then for the intermediate directions, you just put a smaller X there. And then I am going to write north. Remember, never eat soggy waffles. So then north, east, south, east, south, west, and north west. Okay, so there we have our cardinal and intermediate directions is what those are called. Okay, and then our next one here is locator globe, J. Locator globe shows a specific area of the world that is shown on the map. The locator globe on the map above shows where Germany is located, which I pointed out to you already. We'll go back up there again. Here is the locator globe, okay? So then that just gives you an idea of where in the world Germany is.